Welcome to the Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co host, Anthony Marquetta. Anthony, let me tell you something. Those counselors deserved it. They deserved it all. And Jason Voorhees did nothing wrong in the first four movies.
Solid.
Yeah, that's right. But let's actually justify that for a moment. In the first movie, it's established that Jason Voorhees drowned in the lake, and there's a play on spoilers for one of the founding slasher genre movies, and there's excuse me, and it's implied that his vengeful ghost is watching them kids and killing them. These camp counselors, because they let him die earlier. But turns out it's his mother, and Jason may or may not be alive. In the sequel, he starts murdering the camp counselors, mostly over the death of his mother, who he has made a shrine to, which leads to a dramatic scene where uh, this is spoilers for Friday the 13th, number two, where the last girl wears his dead mother's sweater as part of the shrine and uses the ghost of like his psychical ghost memories of his mother to get him to put down his blade enough for her to kill him, or supposedly kill him, uh, which is pretty messed up. In the words of Rod Sterling, that's pretty messed up, right? Then it continues on. Um, in the third and fourth movies, he attacks yet more sinning camp counselors. Um, and yeah, generally, they deserve it. They're on his land. They're ignoring the warnings from the crazy guy who tells them that they're going to get murdered, like all those other kids who also got murdered not even a decade ago. And they're doing things, anti-Christian things like having sex and smoking weed and skinny dipping. Anthony, it's gross. Jason is in the right, is what I'm trying to say.
I buy it.
Yep. In the fifth movie, uh, well, it's funny. In the fourth movie, he seems to be dead, and then a doctor and a nurse start making out next to his corpse. Uh, and he comes alive to murder them. It's anyway. Point is, Jason did nothing wrong in the first four movies. In the fifth movie, I don't. It wasn't Jason who did it. It was a guy who was avenging his son, which the son was a jerk, but he didn't deserve being murdered. And then, of course, you have. Um, we're not on X as much as I want to be. Uh, Then you have on number six, he is revived by a spell from to come back from hell and start murdering them counselors and kids and such who weren't sinning. So I don't really like six. It's more like a demon going around in his body and killing people, uh, which is also apparently accurate to the lore of movie eight. Though technically he doesn't kill any of the kids. I shouldn't say he's going to kill them kids. He clearly only kills adults. But you know, it's less fun
Naturally.
sinning, Anthony.
Look, if they're sinning, they gotta die.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, listen, they're hot young bodies merging together, and then he stabs them with a machete, and that's satisfying. Very Christian, as they say. My morality shall be promoted with the sword. Man, that's just Islam. Yeah, but I actually have sin in my religion and not just arbitrary lust and anger, envy. Uh, it's more satisfying when they deserve it, Anthony.
I agree. Um, I don't know. I wish I could comment more, but I've never seen any of these movies. The truth is, I really watch like not that many horror movies. Um, there's some. I mean, I would count
Famed
Jaws as a
writer
horror. What was that?
Famed horror writer Anthony Marchetta, with almost
This is
50
true.
short stories under his belt.
This is true, actually. Uh, but not a lot of horror movies, right?
That's
I
fair.
have seen a fair amount, or I've read a fair amount of horror in the form of Poe.
Right.
And yeah, pretty much just Poe. Uh, basically, what I'm telling you is that Pinkerton's Ghost is really just a Poe pastiche with a little bit of JoJo.
And the planetary romance, like Oz.
Yeah, sure
There
that
are
too.
planetary romances for eyes to see, Anthony.
You just want an excuse to give to call Oz a planetary romance. And
Yeah.
I don't blame you. Um, not that I've read any of them either, but
Yeah, it is Friday the 13th.
yeah, I mean the only horror movies I've seen. No, I have not seen Halloween, even though it's supposedly the best one, and then so like I don't know.
It
Maybe.
is.
Um, I
He
have
also
seen
kills
The
a lot of
Thing, and that's a
stingers.
great movie. The Thing was in my top 10. I
Yeah.
loved it. Uh, I've seen Alien, good movie. Liked Aliens more, probably a little bit.
Yeah. I'm
I
actually against the grain on that. I liked Alien more than Aliens.
Did you really?
Mm.
I mean,
Like,
it's
don't get me
it's not that
wrong.
unusual of an opinion. It's considered a great movie in its own right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's only based on enjoyment. To me, they're a little bit apples to oranges.
Oh,
So like,
100% by
yeah,
design.
yeah. So it's I'm experiencing it in the intended way, and my natural predilections are of course being promoted or discouraged, in the case may be. The
Yeah,
reason why we're talking about this, Anthony, is that we actually had a Friday the 13th only last Friday.
we did. What? Oh, yeah, damn.
Don't
Okay.
you chart this? Don't you chart this in the
You're
full
right.
moons and the new moons and the stars?
I dig it.
I dig it.
Um no, I did see I saw Alien, which is a slasher movie, obviously.
Mhm.
Um I mean, it's about a supernatural killer who is hunting people down one by one in an enclosed area.
Yep.
Like, it's very, to be honest, I think it's actually very clearly a slasher movie. Slasher slash monster, but slasher. Um,
Yep.
let's see. I Aliens is not a horror movie; it's an action movie. Very good one
Yep.
though. Uh, I saw the original Scream. What's funny is that the Scream movies are clearly designed for people who are like super familiar with horror tropes. So I'm like the exact wrong audience for it. Uh, but also, I actually liked the original Scream quite a bit, which goes to show you like the original Scream is actually a legitimately and unironically good movie in its own right. Uh, it's just a very solid horror movie. I liked it enough that I looked up reviews. I saw, oh, Scream 2 was also considered good. I watched Scream 2 and thought it was pretty bad. So, yeah, do not recommend. Ebert's review of Scream 2 was pretty good. He gave it a good review, but then he's like, okay, but I am going to admit here, like, I am the sort of guy who, like, watches movies for a living. And, so I am literally the market for this movie, and your mileage may vary. Uh, so I agree with Ebert on this. If you are the right sort of personality,
Yeah.
like if you're the right sort of personality, Scream 2 might do it for you. But no, I don't like it.
I yeah, I know I've seen the Scream movies, but I cannot, not all of them, but like, like the original one, the second or third one. But like I have severe memory problems,
I'll
and I
tell you, the
cannot
first
remember.
one is pretty good. It
Yeah.
has some great lines. Yeah, the ending scene, of course the famous line at the end, which is a good line. Movies don't make psychos; they just make psychos more creative.
That is a pretty
Great
good one.
line, like 10 of 10. I love it. Very clever.
Yeah. Uh, yeah.
They have the amazing scene that's like, I want to say it's Reese Wither. It was some famous actress who is on the phone with her friend and she's complaining about everybody in a horror movie is dumb. Like, why do they always run upstairs when somebody's at the door? Isn't that like the last place you should run? And then the killer calls her while she's on the phone and she tries to run outside and the lock is broken, so she's forced to run up the stairs. Uh, it's a very famous scene. Supposedly, I think and then she's killed in that scene. And I'm pretty sure they said that the reason she signed on to the movie is that she read the script and read her scene and was like, "Oh, I got to be in this."
Right.
It's like, this is funny. Uh,
It's almost
but
it's
yeah,
almost like the killer has prepared his whole thing
but
that
that's
he's
the
gonna
thing. Like,
murder
the
him.
whole movie is riffing off of like tropes like that. There's also the fact they make the joke that it's you have to be a virgin if you want to survive, and then near the end of the movie, the main character starts sleeping with the guy, and that's when the slasher comes in. She does survive because they're also subverting it a little bit, but it's pretty funny.
Now, here's a question for you, Anthony. You are aware of the concept behind the Final Destination movies,
Yeah, just people dying because they're prophesied to die or something, right?
right? So, who is it a slasher film?
Uh is the monster the hand of fate?
Yes, I believe so, Anthony. In this essay, I will. Uh,
in in this essay. I mean, sure.
right
It
now,
is now because I just decided that a second ago. Uh,
in this essay, I'll explain why them kids had to die. Um,
yes.
uh, yeah, no, I'm a big fan. So like, there's of slashers in general, much more than Anthony. I am in all ways deeper into horror than Anthony. The
He
fact
is
is that
true.
one of the underdeveloped genres is medieval horror, in my opinion. Uh, like Arthurian medieval, more than anything else. Looking deeply into some of the Arthurian stories, there's actually a very strong horror aspect to them that I think is severely underdeveloped. You have certain knights who are basically slasher villains, murdering people, having death larders and stuff like that. Then you have giants who are murdering people that Arthur has to slay. You have witches and so on. Mordred himself has some aspects to it once he decides to actually be a villain and not a little bitch. Little bitch. All these other things that kind of coalesce together that don't show up in like Idols of the King as much as you think, or like the Green Knight has some aspects to it, which is one of the only good things about the A24 version of the Green Knight. Um, the horror and the environmental horror aspects of it. It's still a terrible movie and horrible in concept, but they actually kind of got the Arthurian, this place is whack, yo. This is a bad neighborhood. Oh shit! Does that tree say Martin Luther King Jr. Drive? We gotta turn around, Sir Arturius. Sorry.
I'm confused. Wait.
Crime often happens on streets labeled Martin Luther King Jr. Drive.
No. Fair.
I am saying that the forest is experiencing an explosion of the crime rate, Anthony.
Incredible.
We gotta turn the horse around. This is
I
just
wish
the
I had
average.
something to add, but that's 10 of 10. Nothing to add. Perfect.
uh, no, but there's like the heroic fantasy doesn't really lend itself to actual like slasher films or filmography, but there's a I don't want to say a tradition or something ridiculous like that. Uh, they were making movies about sexy teens getting murdered in the 1980s. Like it's as much as I want to say that there's a moral heart to the Friday the 13th stories. It's entirely in the meta rather than the actual development of the thing. The kids screwing around and skinny dipping and having affairs sordidly is in fact presented as normal teen stuff. The kids smoking weed and so on is not portrayed as immoral in within the movie logic itself. We portray negative moral aspects on them because, of course, it is an offense to God. But in reality, the movie itself is quite neutral on it, even though some of the movies have, a final girl who doesn't have sex, etc., surviving to the end. In some of the movies, none of the characters aren't having sex. They're at worst encouraging it. Like, oh ho, they're going upstairs. Where that weird broken window was. And occasionally
Yeah.
we hear stomps of boots upstairs, but nothing's up there when we go look. And then he gets murdered later. But it's like yeah, it's like one of those things where like the movies itself within the movies will not provide a moral condemnation. The only moral condemnation is really for people who experience loss because of the um non-observance of others, the carelessness of others. For example, Mrs. Voorhees killing them camp counselors because some of whom were perfectly innocent, and all of whom were innocent of the crime she's avenging of Jason's death, drowning death. Then you have Jason murdering them because of her death, and he's kind of off the chain, and so on and so forth. Um, really, if you stay out of Camp Crystal Lake, he doesn't bother anyone, but he still murders people. Um, but with let me see here. I kind of lost track. Oh, right, moral condemnation. Like the moral condemnation is something we put on it that satisfies us. I am less. I've just finished six, sometime during the week, and I am less satisfied when these kids aren't beautiful people trying to get into each other's pants. When they're just normal people living around the area, it's a little more unpleasant. Like it takes away the fun. Mm.
I get you. Like, I I don't know, man. I just don't watch enough of the slashers. Like in Alien, it's not really about I'm trying to think. Is it about the moral? Is there any moral issue going on in Alien? I'm now thinking it over to be like, am I missing something? It's possible.
Mm.
I only saw Alien once.
No, there wasn't really any moral aspect to any of it. It's just a bunch of space truckers. Um, like in Halloween, like that's why I said the morality of Jason is in the meta rather than anything else. In Halloween, he does kill some people who are screwing around, and it's implied sometimes that he had a complex about his sister or babysitter or whatever they're saying at a given time, having sex with, her boyfriend, and that's why he started killing. But at the same time, like he doesn't talk, and he just starts killing people in Halloween. Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It's why they play up the fact that he's demon haunted more than he's actually just a psycho.
Well,
Like,
I know that what's his face, Carpenter. Carpenter is very insistent that like people who interpret the movie as like a moral thing are wrong, and I totally believe him because Carpenter is actually a degenerate
mm-hmm,
and quite a terrible person. We've had this conversation about him before. I respect Carpenter as a legitimate genius. However, I do not respect him, and I don't think he took the ticket. But then when people go like, "Well, why don't you think he took the ticket?" It's because if he did, he would have been more successful.
yes,
Like, that's the problem. The problem is he never proper. The only proper hit he got was the original Halloween, really, right? When like
mm,
mega hit, deserving of its fame. You know what I mean?
yes,
Uh, Other movies that should have been like The Thing infamously was savaged by critics. By the way, that's a thing that's worth talking about as well. There used to be this phenomenon, and it also happened with Alien, which got mixed reviews. Even The Thing was savaged. The Alien got mixed reviews. There used to be this thing where like critics were didn't used to be the thing that necessarily like decided if a film was a classic or not. It used to be that time could potentially like pull a film out. I'm trying to think of the word here and it's not coming to me correctly. Like
right. It was more pop. It was more populism driven than it was anything else.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like nowadays it's hard to imagine a film. Don't get me wrong. Like critics are less trusted than ever, right? Like that's not
Right.
what I'm saying. It's something a little bit more specific. It's hard for me to imagine a film 20 years from now being considered a classic that critics just savaged completely.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's hard for me to imagine that. I'm not saying that a film would necessarily be a hit. Like, you could have hit films that critics don't like.
Right.
Um, but can you think of like it's hard to even imagine that happening, right? But like it used to happen on a fairly regular basis back in the day, not all the time. Like critics were
Mm,
right more often than not, I guess I would say, and just because the industry was healthier back then. But you're right, it was more of a populism thing, right? Like
right.
Alien is a good example of like Alien got mixed reviews. However, it was recognized pretty quickly, like, oh, hey, I guess we were wrong, and Alien's actually very good, right?
Yep.
Like, The Thing within a decade or so was like, wow, we really fucked that one up. Uh, the Thing blows my mind. Every now and then I see some of these things where they go, critics blasted it when it came out, and I go, I just don't understand. Like, I can understand it not getting great reviews, but how do you like call this one of the worst movies ever made? Which people were
Right.
doing.
Right.
Like that was the reputation of The Thing when it came out, was like, oh, this is one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, but how though? How could you possibly think that with The
Well,
Thing of all movies?
right. And it's like the best I can think of is the fact that, like, how do I want to put it? Like, genre fiction is never beloved by the critic types.
Sure.
So it's like with like so there's debate recently even about things like like novels and stuff like that. And to me, like I accept novels from like everything. Like it doesn't matter if it's a genre, it doesn't matter if it's how do I want to put it? Like it doesn't matter if it's like fantasy or sci-fi. There are novels, as in great novels, that are perfectly, like high class, high critic. But the thing is that they're not acceptable to the critic class because they're fantasy. For example, like things like Awaken the Nightland and Iron Chamber of Memory are to me the highest of high novel class. I have read novels that are higher rated than anything John C. Wright has ever made, but to me they are less enjoyable, less fulfilling than than his work. And not just because I know the man and I love the man, but genuinely, like, I'm a professional, like when it comes to my writing. I don't play around. Borges tends to have, a better sci-fi, not sci-fi, excuse me, a better, short story or whatever, but it's fucking Borges. Like it's like, how if somebody's better than Borges, like they better be, world famous or something. Like, yeah, sure, okay, that. But like if you're talking about, like, I enjoy um you know John C. Wright more than I enjoy some sordid Russian literature. Um like I enjoy, the Count of Monte Cristo, but at the same time, it's basically fantasy with modern Paris. He finds the only, the one slave girl who could destroy his enemies, with his vast wealth. Like, there's so much hand waving in Count of Monte Cristo, it's ridiculous. But at the same time, it's acceptable because it's within the bounds of the story. It's a fantasy, but it's an acceptable modern fantasy of a kind that people accept because it was decided it was high art. You know what I mean? So, like, to me, it's not as great as people say. There's novels by guys like Celine who are well recommended within our circles that you know, have fictional and fantastic South American countries and stuff like that. But then you look at, like, what wins the Newbery Medal. They're like, oh, fantasy might be real, but it's actually the real life that's the fantasy and adventure and having, what you have to love it in the moment. Like Bridge to Terabithia, can't stand it. Can't stand it one bit. Sure, I like the Egypt game and stuff like that, but it doesn't, like, how do I want to put it? Like, the mystery doesn't insist upon itself, Anthony. Thank you, Family Guy. With the best writing in a show in years, it insists upon itself. Um, there's a populism that's lost because people misunderstood that the critics were actually working off of what was popular. Um, Things that sold magazines continued in magazines and were completed. The Count of Monte Cristo, Charles Dickens, a whole bunch of others, all the pulp guys that we like talk about, like Lovecraft and Howard. They sold magazines. If there was a Howard or a Lovecraft story on the cover of Analog or whatever, it was going to sell, and it was going to sell gangbusters because everyone loved those guys. In fact, I firmly believe that if it wasn't for the sheer popularity of Conan and Lovecraft in general, the critic class would destroy them if they could. The critic class would remove them and put in something about two gay boys, or maybe they're gay. It's implied, oh, like some sort of high class Japanese pornography or something like that, where it's like, oh, something's happening, maybe. Uh, it's like, oh, you don't know, but they're in the same room together. Like that's what the critic class would actually go for. The critic classes are fundamentally snobs. Things like Friday the 13th sold very well for what they were. John Carpenter sells very well to his target audience. If there's a John Carpenter movie playing, I'm sitting down and enjoying it. Not because I think he's any sort of Christian ally or anything like that, but because he makes the good quality stuff. Like it's like if you're reading something and it disagrees with you, but it's famous, there's two reasons for that. Either it's actually not famous for any good reason, or it disagrees with you. Like Russian literature disagrees with me. Maybe I haven't read the right one. It's not like I've read Brothers Karamazov or anything by Dostoevsky, but the short stories I've read, I haven't enjoyed. Maybe I should go to the actual source. But how do I want to put it? But the thing is that I recognize that as a matter of taste. I actually really enjoy Gallic, as in like French and Spanish, short stories. Borges is fantastic. I'm reading a collection of his right now. Not literally right now for those autistic in the audience. I recommend Borges to everybody. But I also enjoy things like Pilgrim's Progress, a book so anti Catholic that Anthony would burst into flames if he read it, but also so English that the Italian side of Anthony would burst into flames if he read it. Sorry,
It's a lot
Anthony.
of
He just,
flames.
it is actually. It's a spicy meatball, in fact.
You don't get to be British and claim the meatball. That's not how that works.
I'm saying you are the spicy meatball, Anthony.
Oh,
Don't you get the
very.
analogs? It's a subtle reference to Italian cuisine. I am a great artist. The
Yeah.
critics love me, Anthony. The because that's what the critics enjoy. But then there are things that are like not deserving of the praise. Like I made jokes about like, oh the two boys might be gay. They might be gay, perhaps. Because that's what the critics talk about. That's what the critics obsess over. That's what the critics reward. Partially because they're women or they're spiritually women, and also because they're gay and spiritually gay. They choose things that are politically satisfying, but are in fact entirely not worthy of the art space that they're given. It's like reading some stuff for like an artist's first work. There's always details that are completely unnecessary, that are completely, how do I want to put it, that slow down the plot. I am actually. Uh, that slow down the plot, that have these details to it that just don't make sense and don't need to be there. One of the things I just love about these slasher movies, and I'm bringing it back. Uh, One of the things I love about these slasher movies is that actually they're pretty quick on the uptake. You have your Burger King meal deal from the 90s cast of characters, and they're set up and they're either unpleasant or they're pleasant. And then they start getting watched by a guy with a knife. And eventually that knife starts getting used. And before the half hour mark, there's usually at least one murder, or they have set up the story enough that you want the murders to start. And you're salivating over the murders, and you're like blood. You are shouting into the Coliseum, that these kids got to get murdered soon. Um, it's like these camp counselors are sitting. Let's go. Jason's watching them. When will it be? And then there's a few false starts, and a cat jumps out. There's a cat scare, or a window's broken. Except it's okay because it was just some of the counselors playing baseball, and ooh, they're ignoring the dude who's warning them again. It's the final warning, and it goes on and on and on. Right? There's more and more to it that build up until the first murder starts, and it's very cathartic, and then it becomes either comical or enjoyable or righteous because those two kids were having sex in a hammock and he stabs them through the hammock. Getting them both at once, so they go down to hell together. um, it becomes a moment of enjoyment and catharsis that, quite frankly, you don't get out of like quote unquote modern literature. I've tried to read that stuff. It's ridiculous. Sometimes they add these sappy moments of like, will there be catharsis or won't there be? And it's just like, oh, they didn't have catharsis. Not all life has catharsis in it. People just die and it's sudden. And it's like me with my experiences with the brother. There was moments of catharsis there. In fact, we watched him die, and he was talking about Jesus Christ. Like it's like, yeah, actually, there is catharsis in life. There is catharsis in life, you shitty writers and critics. If only you experienced real life. Oh, but sometimes people get run over by cars. Look, yeah, sure, toddlers kill less people that with guns that are just being laid out apparently than car wrecks or whatever. And it's like, yeah, sure, okay, fine. There's like people who die in car accidents suddenly, but actually, it's not nearly as much as you think it is, and it's always people who are not observant in their daily lives. Sure, sometimes a car jumps a curb, but that's like 1.1% of it, right? The catharsis is in the slasher film, but it's not in the highfalutin literature. I don't know where I'm going with this. All I know is that I prefer a slasher film over a Centurion collection or whatever it's called.
This is Aaron VT says, I have no idea what's going on, but Ben is having a blast.
I just want catharsis.
Yes. Yeah, this all started out as a comment from me going, hey, have you noticed that we don't really have, like, it's hard to imagine that a modern movie getting blasted by critics but being remembered as a classic years later. And then you went on a rant about catharsis.
It turned into a rant about catharsis.
Yes. Yeah, going back to that, and there is some relation to horror, and you're right. Part of it is like genre fiction is often not respected generally. There are some interesting casualties of this. Like, for example, a lot of people don't know this, but one of the contenders for a long time, for like years, and there's an interesting essay that was like the forward of my copy of the book, uh, the novel True Grit, the one that was made into 2 movies, right?
Yes.
That used to be considered one of like the legitimate contenders for like great American novel, right? It was like if you were discussing, hey, what's the great American novel, you would need to bring up True Grit in the discussion. And like the forward talked about this, that like, yeah, there was a period of time where like True Grit was like included in classrooms and taught in schools. And Maddie Ross was considered one of the great voices of American fiction.
Yeah.
And they said, and then it just kind of stopped for like no reason. That one day they just decided, no, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like interesting because even like the essay was kind of asking the question, like, why? What happened? Like the book didn't get worse. Yeah. If anything, it holds up better in comparison to modern writing, right? Like,
Right.
so then what is it? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that True Grit is a Western, and it is not, as though people will sometimes pretend it is not a trying to think of the word, subversion of a Western, right?
Right. It is a
Now,
full, true, well-developed Western.
yes. Now, true, there are elements of True Grit that are definitely like responses to Westerns. However, like in the best works, one thing that you could do, and this is a game I play with a lot of like parodies or semi parodies, is the climax played straight? And if so, how seriously are you supposed to take it, right? Well, what's the climax of True Grit? It's one of the most awesome scenes in cinema, both versions of it, by the way. When what's his name? Rooster Cogburn faces down the outlaws and they call him a fat old man. So what's he do? He says, "Show your hand, you son of a bitch," and double draws his guns and takes them out, right?
Right.
This scene is played completely straight in every version of the story, book and both movies, right?
Yep.
He double draws and shoots down 4 outlaws with while double fisting pistols, revolvers.
Right.
It's awesome. It's great. I love every version of the scene. And it's played completely straight. This scene alone means that whatever the themes of True Grit, it is not a subversion of a Western. It is a Western, right? He takes down the outlaws by having a shootout with them where he is, double fisting two. I'm probably using some sort of sex term incorrectly. I don't care. You all know what I mean. Anyway,
Double fisting?
yeah, I'm sure that's probably a sex
That's
term that I'm
scary.
using incorrectly.
That's
I don't know.
very scary.
Yeah. 2 revolvers, right? Like
Yes.
Now, it is true that True Grit ends famously. The Coen Brothers movie ends this way, which is one of the reasons it's better. And the book ends this way with Maddie 20 years later. I think it's 20 years. She comes to find Rooster only to learn that he joined a Wild West show and died before she could get there. And Maddie reveals that even that grit that served her so well on the trail, now that the frontier is ending, she's ended up alone and hasn't married and lives on her own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a little bit of subversion in the themes there, and the whole idea of Rooster is a man who can whose attitude and life, right? Like it's perfect for the trail and for the frontier. But once that's gone, there's nothing for him. That's why him and Maddie get along so well, right? Because Maddie, too, her personality only really works for the trail. This is certainly a subversion of the Western, right? Like it's that the Western hero isn't going to survive into the modern day. It's done very well. Also, Aaron says double fisting is more commonly a drinking term, a beer in each hand. Sure. Okay. I just felt as I was saying it, I am almost certainly using this phrase wrong, but I'm gonna keep doing it just with
I'm more
confidence.
scared that you knew the term fisting. That's deep lore.
I don't know what it means. I just know that it's a thing.
Mm.
I have guesses, but I'm not gonna make them on stream.
Listen, I'm just saying, is Anthony going to be the next victim?
Anyway, yeah, the point being that you go into something like True Grit, and my point is that True Grit is a Western. Now, the other thing, by the way, that people don't know is that the Western is so old in American history, debatably starting in the 1800s, definitely starting in the very early 1900s, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
like
very clearly by the very clearly in the very early 1900s. I'm talking like 1902 or something. Um, I think that's when the Virginian came out, something like that, and debatably
yeah.
in the late 1800s.
Well,
In other
no,
words,
even
it's
even
been
earlier than that, like Daniel Boone and others were literally having like Western quote unquote, like their lives were Westerns. Or more frontier, I guess, rather than explicitly Western. But like
yes,
what's the
yeah,
like hold on. Here's the story, right? A farmer, an adventurer, has his home raided and the women folk taken by Indians, and he goes on a long journey to get them back, where they're being led by one of the women able to tie a string to some of the plants to help guide him. But like, am I describing a Western or am I describing a literal story from Daniel Boone's life? It's
well, yeah,
well, I am describing a literal story from Daniel Boone's life. The point is that you couldn't tell just based on the facts.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it's the point is that the Western is deeply embedded in American history as both, like real history and as a genre of literature. I mean, I've seen people say that like the first, what we would consider a Western is like The Virginian by Owen Wister, I think his name is. Uh
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And that's like 1902 or something. And then that was like that was a very popular Gary Cooper movie in the 20s. Uh the point is that once you get to like a lot of people don't realize it. So when you talk about like, oh, it's a subversion of a Western, to be honest, the Western is so old that it's kind of hard to subvert it, because there's
Mm-hmm.
probably been a Western about that topic, right?
Right.
Like at some point. Like a lot of people don't realize this. For example, they said, like, if you look up Stagecoach and how it was marketed and how it was written and what John Ford says about it, they said you probably think of Stagecoach as like, oh, well, this is the archetype Western or one of the archetype of the Westerns, right? Like one of the
Mm-hmm.
things we use as like a barometer of what a Western is Stagecoach, right? Except that when John Ford made it and when it came out, it was a subversion. Like that
Right.
was the point of Stagecoach when he made it. The Western was so established when John Ford made Stagecoach, right, that he was messing with tropes. when he made it.
Mhm.
And Ford is very clear about this. He knows exactly what he was doing, So to be like, oh, it's about like the end of the American frontier, as if there haven't been like dozens of Westerns about this topic, I see this, by the way, and one of the most obnoxious ones to me is people going like, oh, like the spaghetti Westerns are subversions of Westerns. Like, no, they're fucking not. Like, I've seen, at the very least, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is certainly not. I've seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's a great movie. It's also just a Western. It's a very good
Mhm.
Western. It's a very artfully made Western. It has probably like a top 5 soundtrack in movie history. Uh, but nevertheless, it is absolutely like a Western. It's like what? It's supposed to be a subversion because the ugly is a jerk. Like, okay,
Right.
yeah, he's not a good person, as if Westerns have always starred good people. Like, since when has that ever been a thing? Like in anyone, like in The Searchers, John Wayne, like, oh yeah, he's such a better person than John Wayne's character in The Searchers. Like, really? He was gonna kill his niece because she was kidnapped by Comanches and got brainwashed.
Yeah.
Like, that's the plot of the movie. Um,
Yeah.
so this idea that like all of this is to say, when you go into why was True Grit removed from the curriculum, the conclusion is that a new critic class got in charge, and they decided that it was too genre fiction, right? It was just
Yep.
too genre, and they couldn't let genre fiction like that be the great American novel. It wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
Cormac McCarthy then came in, and Cormac McCarthy, who, in my opinion, uh, Cormac McCarthy bothers me. I don't like the
There
descriptions
is.
of his stuff. I have no
Yeah.
interest really. Nothing about, like, I watched Wendigoon's like 50 billion hour video on Blood Meridian, and I heard it, and then I said, why on earth would anybody want to read this? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that is still my opinion. Like, I don't understand what the point of Blood Meridian is, or why anybody, or like what you would get out of reading Blood Meridian.
Right.
Like,
Like,
is the point that war is inevitable and can never die? Okay, I could have told you that, because
right.
wars are going on right now. I don't need Blood Meridian to tell me that wars haven't stopped. Like, I could watch the news. It isn't very hard to notice. So
Yeah.
then what? Is it that what I feel like that's the only message of Blood Meridian, really, so I don't really know what the point is.
Also, bless you to your wife.
Thank you.
Nice.
I am a gentleman.
Yes. Yeah, so but Cormac McCarthy does Westerns that, if you really want to talk about, oh, are they a subversion of the Western? Them probably more than anything else, because frankly, there is no point to them. And that
Yep.
is the point. And then those are allowed because they're all about destroying the American dream, right?
Right.
And this goes, by the way, for No Country for Old Men too, which is a neo-Western.
Yes.
And No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers movie, is a masterpiece. The Cormac McCarthy book is evil and chillingly so. And this is because of one massive change that the movie makes that the book does not have, which is that in the movie, when he kills Llewellyn's wife, Llewellyn's wife forces Shigor to make the decision to shoot her on his own. She does not call the coin flip.
Right.
And this, I think, is a critical change to the message of the story. I think it changes everything. I think it's very, very important. Because in the scene in the movie, she calls out Anton Chigurh. No, you're not a force of nature. You are not like the inevitable, tragedy of like death or something. You're not just fate.
Right.
You're a psychopath, and you're choosing to kill these people.
Anton
Right? Like,
Chigurh is a slasher villain, by the way.
yeah, which he is. Yes. So, but hey, keeping it on top.
Hey!
Anyway, he goes, you're just a psychopath, and if you're gonna kill me, you're going to need to actually take that responsibility yourself. You're either kill me or don't. I'm not going to make the choice for you, right? And
Right.
Shiger chooses to kill her. But that's the key, because after that point, Shiger is mortal, right?
Yes.
He is hit by the car, he's injured, and he survives to the end of the movie, but it's implied that it's probably not going to be for that long.
Right. Or at the very least, his mortality is certain, rather
Yeah,
than
exactly. His mortality is certain. Now, this all happens in the book as well, but with one key difference. And the key difference is that in the book, Llewellyn's wife does call the coin. And then that changes the message of, okay, well, he does get injured and it does seem that his mortality is certain, but why is it certain? Well, the
Right.
reason that his mortality is certain is a different message. It's not because his power's been broken. It's because nothing ever mattered at all to begin with. Right? Like, I'm
Right.
trying to think of how to put it. There's something is very, very different about these two scenarios, right? Because in one, it's like she still calls it, but she calls it even though he gets injured and nearly dies, right? Like,
Right.
none of it ever mattered. It's all just means nothing. And that's
Right.
the message.
Well, yeah, and that's yeah, because to me that I'm allergic. I'm allergic to nothing meaning anything. Like, because it's
No, it's horrific. It's horrific. It's
it's
horrendous.
horrific. It's like I've so like, as a person, I've experienced that where like I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing, nothing seems to mean anything. Everyone goes through these periods, but to me, I don't actually get strength from reading, oh yeah, he's going through the same thing I did. I don't care. you know oh, someone else lost a brother. Don't you think that builds a level of empathy? And you read it and it justifies him being mean to like his parents and stuff. It's like, absolutely not. This is ridiculous. Half the reason, like things went quote unquote well with this stuff is because my family said, all right guys, we're going to take care of this and we're going to do it like reasonable fucking people, like not like some sort of like, oh, woe is me, I'm experiencing drama. And like a critic's like, yeah, experience that drama. Like some sort of pervert. Like to me, it doesn't make sense. Like going back to old country for No Country for Old Men, everyone focuses on the line about carrying the flame, but the problem is that like fundamentally the sheriff is a boomer, and he hasn't raised up anyone to take care of the flame. His father raised up him to take care of the flame. Where's his son? Where's his children? They have an empty house. They never show up, or if they show up, they were so brief I never noticed it in the YouTube shorts, because like a lot of things, cinema is best experienced on the YouTube shorts. I'm currently watching Casino through the YouTube shorts
Amazing.
algorithm. But no, in a more serious way, the sheriff has failed. Um, King Kong. This might be a bit too deep to pay attention to while making king cake. Hope everyone has a good Fat Tuesday and beneficial Ash Wednesday. Good night. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. It is Mardi Gras after all. But like the sheriff has a fundamental failure to him in that he doesn't have anyone to carry the flame. Oh, but he carried the flame as far as he could in the next generation. No, in the context of the book and the movie, he is talking about his father. He is explicitly talking about the man who birthed him. He is not talking about some, mysterious person in a metaphorical way. He is talking only about his dad. Yeah, sure. Oh, it's his parents' generation. No, it is his father. He is seeing his father in the dream. He is talking about his father in context. Like he can't give up his personal responsibility for this. It's the same with Llewellyn. Like, yeah, sure, he's hunting, but he's poor. He's the next generation. He's a Gen Xer to the sheriff's boomer, but he's poor and he's hunting basically on subsistence. poaching, actually. He doesn't have a good job. That money is such a big windfall to him. He's putting everyone he loves in jeopardy for it. Um, it's like the people fighting over it, sure, whatever, they're criminals, they fight over money. But like there's things in the background that once you start thinking about, it starts to lose its meaning. Like you can't think too deeply about this, Ben. What do you mean I can't think too deeply about it? The critics are certainly spouting whatever they want. And quite frankly, I haven't watched Windigoon videos in a while. I just got tired of his 5 hour stuff. There's one I kind of want to see on like I like his videos on like other YouTube horror because I just kind of whatever. But frankly, I've suddenly stopped watching Slop because I realized that it's just them describing the plot of things. Wendigo does go a bit deeper. I'm not saying he's like some of them, but I'm starting to get convinced AI writes his work based on how many repetitions and how shallow they are for their length. They didn't feel like this, a year, 2 years ago. Like when you're looking into things like, oh, the meaning behind this or the meaning behind that. No, like, like once you delve into it, the moral starts to be lost. Oh, we're just trying to follow the flame. Okay, so where's your follower of the flame, Sheriff Tommy Lee Jones? Where is he? Oh, he's actually he died to some Mexicans who illegally crossed the border and murdered him. The one guy who probably could have done it. He was hunting, he was poaching, and because apparently he didn't make enough money because he was impoverished. He lives in a fucking trailer park. His wife has nothing once he's dead. You go home and you have your wife, and your wife's worried about you, and you're worried about Anton Chigurh. Well, Llewellyn Moss is floating face down in a pool or whatever the fuck he was doing. He was in a hotel and he got shot.
Yep.
Like that's the thing. Like it's an empty piece when you get down to it. Like I've read The Road, and I read The Road quite deeply. And there's this scene that's just so ugly. Like someone tries to steal from him, and he makes this dude swim out to sea naked in front of his son, the Viggo Mortensen character.
Yes.
To me, that's just too ugly. I could barely get through it. I actually started just skipping paragraphs until it was done. It was disgusting. And I've read The Nightland. I relish The Nightland, where it's like pointless, and there's these things that devour men's souls. They don't even go to hell, they're just gone. Shattered like glass, never to be reformed, and you can't even use the glass to melt down into something new. Like, there's more hope in the Nightlands, where it's just a timer running down to the destruction of humanity, than there is in something like this. Where they're talking about the flame. Oh, I'm carrying the flame. Oh, you know, and there's this dude just murdering people. Oh, but he got hit by a car in the end. So did Jason Voorhees on occasion. So does Michael Myers on occasion. Like there's no justice until he's dead. Until the sheriff puts 6 bullets into his chest and then saws his head off or something. Like it drives me a little bit bonkers. I didn't even know I had this rant in me. I wasn't thinking about it until you brought up No Country for Old Men. And what the fuck is the other one?
I don't know.
I don't know. It disturbs me. Like it's Cormac McCarthy has some things to him. People like talk about, oh, he dated XYZ or a 17-year-old or whatever. I genuinely don't care. Tell me when he was on the island. All right. Was Epstein reading Cormac McCarthy? That's something to actually like talk about and think about, because Epstein sure as hell wasn't reading, John C. Wright or whoever. Like he certainly wasn't reading, maybe he read a little Lovecraft and started laughing. Like what is Ultimate Evil doing at this time? and I'm being facetious. Are they reading things like, are these critics who I'm pretty certain would accept an invitation to go on the island? What are these critics, liking these days? It's about little gay boys, or they're about this, and like, what are the people liking? Actually, the people really enjoyed Iron Lung. The people aren't going to Marvel films or whatever, the slop is. They go to whatever seems best at the moment. What are people revisiting? People are revisiting things like Bullet Train and realizing that they were way better than they ever had any right to be. Critics are doing whatever. Oh, it's just serviceable. When actuality it's good. Like this critic class doesn't understand anything, and they don't accept things that are pretty good either. Like it bothers me, Anthony. It just like when I think about it, like I wanted to sort of talk about slashers and morality, but now we're talking about critics. I don't know. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the problem with this discussing slasher show, Ben, is that I have only seen those two slasher movies, Ben. That's it. That's all I've watched.
And that's your problem.
It is. It's a big problem. Uh yeah, but I do agree with you. You mentioned Nightland and you contrast that with like The Road and those sorts of stories and like the different types of hopelessness. Like that's because the Nightland isn't actually hopeless, right? Like
Right.
uh the Nightland is very, very, very dark, but it's not hopeless. And the thing is, like, neither John C. Wright's version nor the original Nightland are come across as hopeless even when you're reading them, right? Like
Yep.
I consider those the only two Nightland things worth looking at. I've been on the website, I've looked at the other stuff. I don't want to be mean here, but guys, it's all trash. It's all quite bad.
It's just
Uh
fiction.
yeah. John's mentioned himself. He goes like, to be polite here, I am a professional author, and these are all like fan fiction writers. And he's correct. I know that James Stoddard did rewrite the original Nightland. He's considered to be fairly legitimate, but he didn't really write his own thing. He just rewrote Hodgson's stuff. But
Mm.
yeah, the point being, like,
Yeah.
these, as far as I'm concerned, those are the two Nightlands, Hodgson and Wright, right? And if you read either of them, like, even tonally, they don't, with the possible exception maybe of Silence of the Night, uh, which comes in a very important place thematically in the cycle. Uh, they don't even really feel hopeless, right?
Right. And
Now,
even Silence of the Night is very, like, it is about, like, how do I want to put it? Like, how, like, I was talking about, the sheriff talking about, oh, we carry the flame, and then it's like, who's carrying your flame? Well, it's about a boy literally finding a lantern, and trying to figure out what to do with it. It's got deep meaning to it. It's just, the it just feels the most hopeless of them.
yeah, yes. Well, the other thing, Silence of the Night is only works because of where it is in the cycle,
Mm,
right? Like
yeah.
if it were the only Nightland story, I probably would not be very fond of it at all. As it is, I know you mentioned that because it's about a boy's relationship with his father, it has personal meaning to you. And that's fine. It's very well written.
Yeah.
But I do think it's probably the word. I think that what's his face? The guy who ran the website who wrote the forward to the book.
James Stoddard.
No, Robertson, was that it?
I thought James Stoddard ran the website, so I don't know.
Nope. It's definitely not Stoddard. It was that guy whose wife died, who was John's friend, whatever. It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry.
Point
I don't know.
he claimed in the forward that he thought it was John's worst story.
Mm,
And I would tend to agree with him. With that said, it's a very important story in the cycle, and it needs to be contextualized as part of the larger cycle of the Nightland stories, right?
right.
So the context of Silence of the Night is very important for understanding it, which is that in the cycle, they're all about different types of love, right?
Mhm.
Love between a brother and sister, uh, or no, I'm sorry, love between friends, then love between a brother and sister, then love between a father and son, and finally romantic love and love between man and God, right?
Mm.
Uh,
Right.
those are the different types of loves being explored in the Nightland stories. And the fact that it's about love between man and God is kind of the twist at the end of the final story as well. It's not obviously about that until you reach the end of the story. So, all of this is to say that Silence of the Night fills that thematic niche, but it's also about so every story is that they need to go out for some reason. The
Mhm.
main character needs to venture into the Nightland to rescue someone, right? Uh,
Right.
and all of them, they're rescuing different people. In Awake in the Night, he's rescuing his friend Parathus. In Cry of the Night Hound, she is rescuing her brother. In Silence of the Night, the man is rescuing his father.
Mhm.
And then in The Last of All Sons, the world is ended and things are very different. Things are happening. It's a very different type of story.
Yes.
Uh, okay, so once you reach Silence of the Night, we have seen these two other types of loves happen, right? Where he goes out to rescue his friend, and then where Antigone goes out to rescue her brother. So, what's going
Mhm.
on in Silence of the Night? Well, we're far into the future. We know that humanity is going to go extinct now in only a few thousand years, right? We are
Yes.
very near the end. Uh, it's just a few thousand more years in the Nightlands, and then maybe a few hundred where they're surviving out in the plains, and then humanity goes extinct.
Yes.
So, they are aware of this. They know it's going to happen, but they have known this since the first book, right? Since Awake in the Night, since the Nightland itself, the original novel. The extinction of humanity has been known. They cannot prevent it. The best that they could do is give humanity a maybe a few hundred more years, right? That's it. That's
Yeah.
all they got going for them is a few hundred years of extra time that they might be able to buy. But Silence of the Night does something different than the other stories do. And this is the very notable thing. In the other stories, there is always this hint that a happy ending might potentially be coming at the very, 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 very end of it all, right?
Right.
And that's the almost mythical time when lovers will be reunited, right?
Yes.
They don't really go into how this is even going to be possible. It's not necessarily believed by everyone, but nevertheless, it's the one thing humanity is hoping is like putting all of their hope in. The only thing they possibly can hope for.
Right.
At the end of everything, the poets have promised them that there will be a time when all lovers are reunited. So, all of the horrible stuff that's happening in the Nightland, no matter what you think, no matter how it seems, it's all temporary. None of it's permanent. Uh, love is going to win, right?
Right.
Until, and this is the big change, you reach Silence of the Night. In Silence of the Night, he is communicating with men from future generations who say, so, we've finally done it. We've gotten the ability to see to the very, very end of time, right? And we got something to report to you. The time when all lovers will be reunited, it's not coming. And he goes, but that's impossible. That's all of the, throughout all of human history, the poets have said this consistently. We've known, like, it has to come. And they go, we were wrong. We know, we've checked. We are promising you, we are sure of this. All lovers will not be reunited. Once humanity goes extinct, it's over, right? There
Right.
is no hope. So why would and then the story ends and he is forced his father technically I was going to say he's forced to kill his father. Yeah, he does kill him. I was going to say his father
Yeah.
sacrificed himself. He does, but he has to kill him too. Uh both of these things happen, right? The main
Right.
character is forced to destroy his father's soul. He has no choice. If he doesn't do that, then his soul will be destroyed. Humanity will go extinct several thousand years earlier, right?
Yep.
He has to destroy his father's soul. And Silence of the Night ends with this incredibly creepy and terrifying line where he goes, there was no sound except for the laughter that comes from the land whence comes the great laughter. And that's it. That's just the end of the story. If this
Mhm.
was the only Nightland story, or if this were the final Nightland story, either one of those things, it would be miserable and horrible, and I would hate it.
Yes.
Frankly, I doubt I would reread the book. I would just put it down and I would tell people not to pick it up. I would say this is an evil book. Don't touch it.
Yes.
Right? However, crucially, it's not the final story. Right?
Right.
And that's what makes it so brilliant. Silence of the Night had to be there because essentially it's telling you how the devil works, right?
Yes.
And it's the difference between faith and I don't want to say reason because you would go like, well, doesn't all reason point to the fact? Like, no, actually, all reason tells us that if all of humanity has said this up to this point, then this very small group of people who can't actually see all the way to the end, how could they, right? Like, that's not possible. They can't see all the way to the end. The end is way later than they can see to. Which we learn in The Last of All Sons. John has to make up a number, right? Like Vigintillion, which I did look up, by the way. It's not a real number. So anyway, like faith would tell you, and faith is the trust in God, right? Trusting
Right.
in God's
Trusting
promise.
in things unseen, basically.
Right. Trusting in things unseen, specifically the things that you're trusting in are the promises of God. So
Yes.
the only thing you can trust in, even when things seem like they aren't, you know that God is trustworthy. This is why faith is always the rational choice, right?
Yes.
And that's the crucial difference here. In Silence of the Night, he is telling him, hey, you know that faith you have? Well, it's wrong. And this could be anyone telling you this nowadays, right? I died and I came back and there was nothing. Hell, there is just nothingness beyond the grave, Um, I've never seen a ghost. I've never seen anyone. Like, just give up. There's no point to any of it, right? Um, and that could in the moment seem like the rational thing to think. But that's
Right.
only if you and that's exactly what's going on in Silence of the Night. It seems like the rational thing in the moment when everything seems to be going wrong. You need to keep your faith anyway, because in reality, as we learned in The Last of All Sons, the problem was that the end of man, they didn't go extinct late enough, right? They thought that was the end, but it was really just the extinction of humanity. There were things that were happening long beyond humanity's extinction that they couldn't possibly have known about, right?
Yep.
And when they get to when you get to The Last of All Sons, once again you reach the scenario where it seems as if all hope is completely lost, to the point where the entire book seems to be that the forces of the night have revived humanity for no other reason except that they're bored and want to torture them some more.
Yep.
Right? And that appears to be the only thing. But there's a crucial difference with the protagonist of The Last of All Sons and the protagonist of Silence of the Night. And the big difference between these two protagonists is that, unlike the protagonist of Silence of the Night, who is Aeneas, the protagonist of The Last of All Sons doesn't believe them. This is
Right.
a big this is the crucial difference between the two. He is being told there's no hope, you are doomed, and in fact, we've revived you for another reason. You are the reincarnation of the man who doomed humanity to begin with, and now you are fated to do it again, right? And that's the real reason we've revived you. We've revived you so that because the universe is about to be remade, and we need you to let the creatures of the Nightland into the universe again. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be here.
Right.
And the difference with this character and the previous character is that he doesn't believe them. Why doesn't he believe them? What's the difference? Well, his lover, his Murdath the Beautiful, right, tells him it's a lie.
Yep.
They're lying to you, right? And he believes her. Why does he believe her and not the creatures of the Nightland? Because he loves her. Like, really, that's it, right? He loves her. So
Yep.
he says, I choose to believe the person who loves me. So how does the story end? The story ends with the creatures of the Nightland literally surround him. He is alone with only his discos, right?
Right.
The door of the House of Silence has been permanently opened. It cannot be shut, right? And he is surrounded. And yet, she says to him, don't be silly, just say the word. Right? Like there's
Right.
nothing to worry about. It's so, they have no power. You're completely safe. Just say the word. And that's when he realizes, oh, wait, if there's a master word, there must be a master.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls on the master of the master word, and that's the real ending, right? Silence of the Night. I say all of this to say that these stories like Silence of the Night, what Cormac McCarthy is writing is Silence of the Night, but without the ending,
Yes.
right? That's why, like, how does No Country for Old Men end? Well, it ends with the judge, who is supposed to be like the living incarnation of war, right?
Right.
Dancing naked to wildly while saying he will never die. That's the ending of Silence of the Night, right? Like
Right.
that just is that's exactly how Silence of the Night ends. And you know what? It works very well if the story continues.
Right.
But Cormac McCarthy doesn't continue the story. He just ends it there. And then you go, well, then what's the point of anything? Why am I even living? Cormac McCarthy can't give you an answer. He doesn't have one.
Right.
Why didn't Cormac McCarthy kill himself? To be honest, the only reason I can assume is that he didn't really want to.
Right.
I don't think he had any principled reason to avoid it.
Right. It's like, oh, but he's got the ranch and he sells this and he apparently dated a 17-year-old or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, but those aren't actual reasons to not kill yourself. Like the pleasures of the world fade. You experience suffering. Uh, you experience horrible things that happen to you. Uh, uh,
Oh.
like, and in the end, these things grow and they grow and they grow and they grow. Like the morality of the petty, internet types who harp on about the same thing all the time. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did that. It's like, yeah, sure, sure,
Nope.
sure, sure, sure. But fundamentally, what's underneath it, right? What's the sin nature underneath it? People giving into lust or their lower natures, always has that limit. Eventually they go into the house of silence in a metaphorical way. What Cormac McCarthy reveals is that he actually knows about things like the fire and the flame and civilization and how to live as a good person. He understands that. He understands it academically. He can talk about it. He talks about the sheriff and how Llewellyn Moss and all this other stuff, right? He has the kid and he has these evil people in the I just want to call it a wasteland, in his wasteland of a book. Uh,
Yeah.
and they're contrasted against civilized people who are having a party and there's violin playing and dancing, and the kid goes back to the judge. Um, it's like, sure, fine, he goes back to war and it kills him. Okay, I know that there's some people who are dedicated warriors. There's always an archetype like that lying around. Achilles is the example. Hector is also an example. In different ways of men who are just warriors. They're Cincinnatus at it. They're more than Cincinnatus. They're like they're actually unsatisfied. They're Coriolanus if they're just not fighting something. Um, yeah, sure, there are those people, but they don't actually act like that. They don't go back to war because that, they can't stand living in some other way and they can't do it. A lot of those guys were family men. A lot of the men who I've met in person who are like that, sheepdogs by nature, or even wolves by nature, still produce families. They still have things that they do with themselves that are more than just self-destruction. In fact, there's very little self-destruction in them. One of the men who I know is like that, who might be my FBI agent. Woohoo! I'm kidding, kind of. But he saved a man at the bar who had a heart attack. He did CPR until the um, ambulance got there. Another guy I know who's like that, who has killed men, uh, uh, including one who lay in wait with him for him to kill him because he thought he was sleeping with his wife, but he got the address wrong of all things. That stuff doesn't. How do I want to put it? Like he didn't seek that stuff out. Most of these guys don't actually seek out the death. They might like the life. They might held themselves to a certain standard or to the next project, but there's no like self-destructive drive in that way that Cormac McCarthy describes. Like he's part of a generation that lived in hard times, but at the same time, it's like I don't know what they pulled out of him that would make him any different from a slasher villain or a slasher hero, right? Like the thing with the slashers is that actually things are very good. It's small town America. It's Americana at its best, and there's somebody just murdering kids, counselors, having sex with each other or whatever. And it's like, what's the difference between him and what's the difference between the judge and Jason Voorhees? Well, the judge can talk, and Jason Voorhees can't. The judge reasons, and Jason Voorhees actually doesn't really reason. He just kind of has a bug brain of how can I murder these people in what way, in what dramatic way. There isn't actually much conscious volition within Jason. He either attacks or he waits to attack. But the judge sits around and he goes, if there isn't something I know, it doesn't deserve to exist. And I think that if the judge was a real person and not, they say he was a real person from, like this one giant dude, 6'4", whatever, who may have murdered a kid. Like, yeah, sure, okay, fine. But if he had actually talked like the judge would have talked, he would have just been shot at some point. They would have just killed him because I don't I know how these guys think about these monstrous people. Like, yeah, sure, sometimes they just chat about whatever, but there's very little actual justification going on beyond what they need to do. They don't talk grandiosely about life and how to live and stuff like that, even when they're drunk. They just tell each other war stories. They tell each other, "Oh, do you know about that one time this guy tried to kill me?" I'm like, "Oh, tell me," and he described the story. Oh, here's the time I was running a security thing and I was really close to the president. Oh, that's pretty cool. And then mentally I'm going, you're an FBI agent, aren't you? You're Secret Service of some kind. You're something. Dead-eyed man. It's like one of those things where it's like, the normal people, the non-literary people actually are reasonable. There's a portion to it that if these things were realistic or whatever the critics are looking or talking about, if they had a connection to real life like the critics say they want, they wouldn't actually act like that. Oh, but these people were murderous and whatever. Yeah, they were murderous. But there's actually very few people who actually hit the murder sprees that people get. you know and when they get to that point, they're usually monsters, running gangs of drug-addled maniacs, who they can barely control. Tamerlane was like that. He murdered all these people, and he did it for cruelty's sake. But at the same time, everyone understood that this guy was a maniac. Genghis Khan wasn't a maniac. He had specific rules that he followed. But he still murdered tons of people and distributed the gold, but he did it, according to rules. Tamerlane just did it because he was cruel. Same with guys like Joseph Stalin and Hitler of the modern times. Napoleon wasn't accused of the crimes of Hitler, or Stalin or anyone else. Why was that? Well, because he was civilized, because he wasn't cruel, but he was still the arch villain. Like you look through these things, right? You say, okay, who was evil? Who did this? How did they do this? And you start seeing actually the people who did the worst were small-minded. People like to joke about, mecha esoteric occult Hitler, with magic powers, for like Wolfenstein and other novels. But in reality, we have plenty of evidence that shows that he thought Goebbels was crazy for some of this stuff. Because Goebbels was the guy who supported Anerbine and others. Like he was like, what's this nonsense? We might as well be Christian. Like he's like, if we're doing this mystic shit, we might as well just go back to being Christians. We killed that, like we're not gonna do that, because he wasn't a Christian man. Stalin, with all his cruelty, he was just a petty man going for an ideology that only thought of murder because the ultimate sin of communists are envy. Like it's like there's you can't get profound nature. You can't, like, Satan does not have a profound nature. If he had a profound nature, he would read the Bible that he quotes and then go like, oh, I'm actually going to lose. I should reevaluate my life. He serves for 993 years or whatever it is, and then he is in rebellion for the last 7 years of this world. Before the new heaven and new earth. That doesn't actually speak of a profound nature. It just speaks that, he lost and he, serves underfoot, until he decides he can rebel again. Like it's like a dog going to his vomit, right? That's not profound. Writing about it isn't profound. When I talk about a satisfying slasher film, my satisfaction is directly related to how much of an asshole those kids are, right? If they're pushing people around, bullying, one of the weaker members, having sex and smoking weed and skinny dipping and whatever sexy stuff they put in there, because part of it is the transgression. uh you know the more that they're evil, it makes sense. But then at a certain point, they're just too evil, and you're laughing it off. Like, yeah, it becomes a different sort of catharsis. It becomes a different sort of story. It becomes an Avenger story rather than a slasher film. Like something like RoboCop, you could actually say is a slasher film because he goes around murdering all these criminals, but that's not actually accurate. The Death Wish movies, where the guy kills the criminals in his city, you could say like, yeah, sure, it's a slasher film. He murders criminals, but that's not really what it's not that, like, you wouldn't put it on for a horror film fanatic, right? If, let's say, you have this goth baddie over, um, or Anthony's wife suddenly turns goth and horror film and all this jazz, which I don't think so. I'm just saying, I'm just putting out there so that Anthony's not cheating on his wife in an imaginary scenario. But I have the goth baddie over, and she's like, "Let's watch a movie." I'm not putting on Death Wish. I'm not putting on whatever, like RoboCop. We'd enjoy it, but it's not really what she asked for. She asked for, like, a horror film. Like hey, it's Friday the 13th. You want to watch Friday the 13th? Yeah, it sounds fun. Like it's a different spirit to it. There's a difference between some counselors who may have let a kid die because they were having sex or something, than a dude who's, running the drugs in a city and murdered a dude's wife. Like, there's different spirits to it. Just like in the same way, there's a different spirit to something like The Road and Awaken the Nightland, or the Nightland itself. Like in the Nightland, there's not even as much hope as John C. Wright puts into it, but there is love. There's extreme amounts of love. There's so much love, I get sick of it. You're like, oh, she was very naughty, and oh no, she tore her feet, so I had to make shoes out of my precious, warming garment. She's scared because she ran off into the night, and I had to go after her, and then I spanked her because she was naughty. Like, it's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Please stop. I can't take it. But at the same time, it's love. It's like he's describing the little ways that she bothers her and that he loves her for it. She talks to him about things he doesn't care about. And, the Foyd babble, of which we discuss on the internet at length. Like it's an affection there. There's an affection between him and, the Murdath the Beautiful. And it's almost painful to experience, at least for me. Like when I see people like sharing a smooch, there's a moment in Iron Chamber of Memory that just stuck in my craw, where the monstrous Prince of Darkness, sees someone mourning over a dead, heroic man. That Lorelei finally learns how to cry. Her heart breaks, and he knows that if he died, no one would mourn. The concubines he keeps and he beats, a lot. Eldritch fan, you missed a lot. The concubines were. I'm basically on my last monologue. Where were you? We've already murdered all these kids, and now you're like, I could go for another one. All these camp counselors died, and you're like, I don't know what that is. It's like a lot, dude, a lot. I'm kidding. I love you, Eldritch fan. It's good. I went on an aside and I lost track. The spirit of these things is totally different. It expands and grows the more you actually put into it. Something like the Road versus the Nightlands doesn't actually build up the spirit in the same way that something like uh, Wake in the Nightland does. The Prince in the Iron Chamber of Memory, when he dies, he's not going to be mourned or missed. Everyone's going to be glad. They're going to celebrate. um and he knows it, and so he bites and chews his tongue. I've seen that. I've even experienced that. I've seen people look over, across the bar at two lovers embraced, and I've seen the look on their face, and they usually leave the bar after, because they're not actually a disgusting human being, a disgusting worm of a creature. They're a human being who, wants it for themselves, who wants the experience of love, but they can't bear to look at it, because of the misery in their own lives. It's that's more honorable than these things these critics, do. The slasher film, putting a machete into the face of somebody who, previously made fun of the disabled kid or something like that, is very satisfying, but it's not like wholesome. There's a post online that's brought to memory. The post online that's brought to memory. I'm sorry, Eldritch fan. I'll put your comment on screen. Um, where essentially people go, isn't it weird that like the people who like are goths are like actually wholesome people, but like the people who are like, I'm such a hecking mentally healthy person, I only, play Stardew Valley, are actually like the most horrible people you can imagine. They're the ones grooming the kids, and then like the goth person is like, you should, not do that. We'll add, like the we actually, support you becoming a real person rather than, a caricature of somebody. Like but in reality, there's like 80% of the normies that you're completely ignoring with that post. The normies are doing okay. I talk to normies. I've experienced things with normies. Uh, that like actually, they don't go to like Iron Lung and Friday the 13th movies and stuff like that. They might do it like once for Halloween, but things like the Terrifier are completely outside of their purview. It it's like this, right? There's, you know, a way to represent reality that becomes distorted depending on what frame you're viewing it on. And even though something like, like goth subculture seems to be very healthy because they're trying to be their own people and whatnot, they're still in a sort of rebellion against normalcy. There's tons of witchcraft and witches running around. There's a lot of homosexuality and stuff like that. You know, one of my first interactions with him was a guy telling me a story about how a goth stabbed somebody in a mall near him, near one of his sons, actually. Excuse me. You know, like there's, you know, like people going on about like looking at Breaking Bad, but it's like none of the characters there are good. You know, even like the police guy will just lie all the time. Hank Shraver lies constantly. You know, he hypes up people to like go find a criminal, and then he goes, "Ah, we're not going to," you know, they're gone. They're in Mexico or they're dead. You know, like he just lies to people. You know, his wife is a weakling compared to Skylar, who's a psychopath. You know, like and who will like who I'm not even sure she's sentient based on the events I've seen what she does. You know, like what do you mean normal? Like actually no one in the story is normal. Like you can't just look at it and go, actually there's people I like to emulate. Like if you go to like something like The Road, who are you emulating? In reality, The Road's never going to happen. And I'm going to say this like this, and it's going to sound weird. It would happen even less than something like The Nightland would happen. Like the Nightland is a more reasonable future than The Road. But it's like, well, they're starving and stuff like that. Actually, we have models for what the world would look like if something like The Road would happen. It happened in the 500s, and it happened during the years of the Black Death, and it happened in the 1800s. And guess what? In the 1700s, and even during America's founding. And guess what? The reports of cannibalism were highly exaggerated. It turns out people would rather starve than eat others. Oh, but what about the No Country for Old Men? In actuality, people don't put up with Anton Chiggers. They kill them. Good sheepdogs kill them. You might be like, well, what about Coney and the African warlords? Well, guess what? When people bother to capture them because they're in a hell pit, because Africa is hell, they get killed, and they get killed pretty quickly. They usually get murdered, or they get killed in a court of law, or they get arrested forever. Guys like Maduro only last as long as they're useful. Oh, but they captured him for Donald Trump wanted the oil, Israel, crimes against humanity. He was going to go to war against Guyana. Insert whatever you want. You know, no, he lost. You know, he finally people were just pissed off enough to capture him. That's it. You know, like you know, his secret police dissolved and disappeared because a whole lot of their government agents started disappearing pretty much as soon as he was captured. They saw the writing on the wall and they went back to normal lives because they knew they were going to get shot in the street. The holdouts were shot in the street. You know, what about Iran? You're looking at a place that always has dictators and god kings and priest kings. Even like back in the Sassanid times, they were still killing their own people all the time and sacrificing them to Zoroaster and all these other things. You know, like, what are you talking about? This is normal. This is the sin world. You know, like it's like I can't explain this to you, but like as much as I want, but like something like Friday the 13th is more wholesome than all of Cormac McCarthy's work.
Yes.
You know, like going like I wish I could go over it, but like yeah, sure, the words are beautiful, but at the same time they're worthless. Uh, the last story I read from Luis Borges or whatever, was one where a dude is on the run, and he's just waiting to die. And he goes to the movie theater and he reads Dante's Inferno. And what makes it like valuable as a story is that when the guy he screwed over or betrayed because he views himself like chewed on by somebody in the ninth pit of hell for traitors. Um, you know, he turns over in his bed and covers himself with a sheet, and eventually he just gets shot when they realize he's not going to say anything. Like it's beautiful, and it has more to it than something like the kid going back to Judge Hold'em, at the end of whatever the book is called. Like it's
Blood Meridian.
thank you, Blood Meridian. Like there's no value to that. There's no value to a critic praising it. There's no value to a critic saying this is the best thing ever. Like I understand that these cruel things get stuck in your head, but I saw gore sites when I was 13, and that gets stuck in your head. There's no difference between Cormac McCarthy and bestgore.com. May it rest in piss. The human nature isn't in the death. It's in the life. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was trying to get to. Like when I do these monologues, like I usually try to get to the point, but the problem is that my mind doesn't actually tell me what the point is until it comes up naturally. Like the like it in Pinkerton's Ghost, we have a lot of themes, right? Like we have the
Many
downfall of
themes.
America, many themes. But the point is that there's one of the big ones is that there's always more in the life than there is in the death. Like people can die for something good, but the best deaths of heroes are the ones who die increasing life. Like I have a character in a series that I'm working on, where she dies because she can see the future, and she chooses something that brings forth more and more and more goodness and life and joy, because she can see it, and because she can see God's hands in things, because she can see the future. Like the idea that someone who can see the future can't see God's hand in it is completely and utterly ridiculous and unserious. It comes from an atheistic mindset that someone in the future can't see it. Cassandra was aware of what the gods were doing, and she despaired. But she, this character, who dies in this character's who in this other character's introduction, sees it, and she chooses life, even though it comes at her death. And one of the climaxes of the story will be that what she saw will be physically revealed to the main character through the actions of a demon. The demon uses it. It's like, this is disgusting. She died for nothing. He's tearing at it. Because to him, all this goodness is dross. He's Uncle Screwtape. But to her, it's actually a vision of God. God's hand doing it. And as he's like, look at what she died for. These two people got married, and it's like, it's like, this, like showing gold as if it's shit. Like it's, I'm still workshopping it, but it's like the character, sees the hand of God, even as the demon sees the hand of God. And of course, they have completely different reactions to it. It's like that, right? Cormac McCarthy is the demon at this point, saying, oh, look at this bad stuff. This, this. Don't you know it's like a fire? You take it as far as you can, and then someone else picks it up, but ignoring the fact that Tommy Lee Jones's character may have children, but they may not be picking up the fire, if they have anything about it, that he didn't teach them these things. He talks to another old man when he should be talking about it to his own son. It's anti-life, whereas something like Friday the 13th, it's clearly shown that Jason is anti-life too, but fundamentally he kills people who are also anti-life, who are anti-goodness, anti-decency. They're just there to fulfill their lusts and appetites. Like I said earlier in the stream, there's a direct level of satisfaction between how much of an asshole those kids are, versus how much not a jerk they are, depending on how satisfying the kills are. Terrifier is the same way. They're always very careful, even for the most bloody kills, to have these disgusting things to it. But in the end, angels are fighting the monstrous clown and his goddaughter thing. It's different. A book. I'm working on it. I've got a few thousand words into it. But it's like one of the things I work when I want to just write something different, because the main character is just a bitch. And it's funny. Funny to me to have her interact with people who are actually wholesome. Uh, it's like, oh, actually, these people experience as much as I did, and they're just actually wholesome people and living their best lives, and I'm not. Yeah, maybe you're the problem. And then, of course, you make her heroic. As things go. I'll release it on Royal Road when it's ready, episode by episode. But it's like that. Has Jason ever offed a kid? I don't think so. I say those kids because they're like 16 to 18. The camp counselors are young. In the latest lore, he tends to actually value children's lives and not kill them. Um, I'm pretty sure he killed like one kid in like number 2 or 3. Um, I say kids because it's funnier. Like it's an episode of comedy. It's like get them kids. Them kids are violating Camp Crystal Lake's rules. What are Camp Crystal Lake's rules? Christian morality, actually. Turns out the wages of sin are death. It's just that Jason's the one's doing it. All right, I've got it out of my system. What do you got, Anthony? What do you got? Go on a rant for me.
Go on a rant for you.
Yeah, rant about something.
Rant about something. I don't know, man. It's 9:00. I'm tired.
Okay, that's fine. You'll never get to be a cult leader if you can't rant about these things, Anthony.
I'll keep that in mind.
Everything's about cults these days. It's like that old it's like that marketing thing. It's like you got to build a religion around it. And I think there's a religion around like
Yeah,
critics
there you go.
works and stuff. Like, it's a religion of the Centurion collection or whatever it's called. Religion of navel gazing.
Here's my rant. I finally bit the bullet and got myself access again to Crunchyroll, which I haven't had in a while because Demons of the Shadow Realm will be coming out in April.
What's Demons of the Shadow Realm?
Hiromu Arakawa's new anime.
Oh. I can help you sail the seas for that.
I do know.
Okay.
But there's actually a lot of anime that I would like to watch, so I'm like, it's not that expensive. I'll
Fair
get it
enough.
for a little bit. So yes, I did consider that. I'm sure it wouldn't be very hard to find. That was my sister's response as well. However, I haven't caught up on anime in a bit, and as I always like to emphasize when we talk about it, I do not have a moral opposition to all anime. Obviously, there is incredibly degenerate anime that I am disgusted by and avoid. But there are also good anime that I would watch. I just haven't had the opportunity to in a while, so it gives me a chance to catch up a bit, and then maybe we could discuss it on stream if I find something good.
I dig it. I'd be willing to talk about Arakawa's work whenever it comes out. So that I'll open up for that.
Well, yeah. I've been very public. I also put it out on my blog recently. Like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I have thought about this, is just straight up my favorite show.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best epic fantasy of the 21st century. I know Game of Thrones is competitive in that market. Wheel of Time, people will consider sometimes as well. I don't know about that. It's just hard for me. I haven't read either of them, so I can't like definitively say they're worse. However, it's just hard for me to imagine something being all that much better than Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like Lord of the Rings is better.
Yeah,
but Lord of the Rings is better than most things, you know. So that doesn't mean that much to me, you know. And with Hiromu Arakawa, she's made 2 of my favorite anime ever. She's also the creator of Silver Spoon, which is a high school farming slice of life manga.
that
Super
in its
wholesome.
own weird way is like just as good, just a different genre. Uh, but like for its genre, it's almost as good as an example of it as Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is of its genre. Uh, yeah, not I would discuss it more, except number one, we're at the end. And I just complained that I was tired. And number two, we've had shows on this, but in the way distant past. This is now like, old lore of the show.
Yeah.
Uh, but Hiramu Arakawa, basically, she gets the golden ticket as far as I'm concerned, right? Like, I am gonna try and I'm gonna watch anything that she puts out. I trust her implicitly. So I am actually really looking forward to Demons of the Shadow Realm. Don't know a thing about it. Have not read the manga at all. So I am very curious. And as soon as I saw like it's gonna be animated by Studio Bones, like you kidding me? That's amazing. Uh that's it's gonna be awesome. I'm actually like I am
Right.
very confident it's gonna be good.
Yeah. I haven't. I think I've seen Wolf's Rain a long time ago,
Never seen Wolf's Rain, sorry. Don't know it.
and it's a vague memory. So, you know, I understand that there's something about people and guys and a girl.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
we haven't had this used to be our bread and butter in the olden days, but uh yeah, this used to be our bread and butter in the olden days, but we haven't had anime discussions in quite a bit. We should probably do something like that again.
Well,
Don't
the
get me
thing is,
wrong, I don't want it to become our bread and butter again. I think it's
no.
good to branch out, but just to
And so,
discuss for a show.
yeah. Well, like the thing is I haven't actually watched any anime in a while.
Right, same
Like,
thing. That's what I'm
like,
saying, but I want to be very clear that the reason I haven't watched any anime in a while is just because I haven't had a lot of opportunity for it.
yeah.
I enjoy it as much as I ever did.
Well, and a lot of it just hasn't been as interesting to me. Some of it, like Jujutsu Kaisen, I just never read the manga, so of
Yeah.
course I am not doing it.
Oh,
Same
some
with
of it hasn't, but some of it has, and I just haven't had like the interest in like the new
yeah,
season of MHA. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, man, this is really good," and I'm like, I would be interested in watching that, and I just never ended up getting around to it. So maybe I'll give
yeah.
that a shot. Chainsaw Man, only saw a couple episodes of it, thought they were great. Like,
Oh, I mean,
was
I
there
did finish that, but
I did watch. Now I obviously have read the manga in full.
mm,
I'm caught up on the manga, but like
mm,
I watched a couple episodes. I thought it was great. It's not like I had any reason to not be watching the Chainsaw Man anime. I just didn't end up, for whatever
yeah,
reason, right? Like didn't have time for it, forgot about it. Uh, I remember years ago I watched a couple episodes of Odd Taxi, and that was the hotness for a season.
yeah.
Again, no issue with it. Would have finished it. I'm like, this is interesting. I'll keep up with this, and then I just didn't.
I watched all Odd Taxi all at once, and I think that's a better way to view it.
Then I'll give it a shot, actually.
Yeah,
Because it's supposed to be really good. It looked really good. I had no issue with it, right? Like there was nothing that
mhm,
made me think that the consensus was wrong. There's things like some of the anime that we've discussed, like some of the masterpieces really are masterpieces, right? Like Full Metal Alchemist Brother, of course, being my favorite, but like Cowboy Bebop is another one. Cowboy
yeah,
Bebop, somebody mentioned this on Twitter recently, and I think they're right. They're like, I don't really think that there is an equivalent to Bebop in any other medium where it's so good that it's almost boring for people to bring it up when they go, well, what's the best anime ever? And someone goes
mhm,
Cowboy Bebop, and then they get annoyed because they're like, well, obviously Cowboy Bebop, like besides Cowboy Bebop. And this is true, actually. I thought about that for a moment. I'm like, I think that's kind of right. Like, whenever you have these discussions, it's always sort of assuming Bebop, right? Like, implicitly.
yeah. And it's like, well, what about something like Serial Experiment Lane? Yeah, that's up there. Or what about Outlaw Star? Yeah, that's different kind, but that's up there. Like
Right.
yeah, those are the best because they came at a time when the talent was freshest and the spirit was right, and there wasn't like internet interference. Serial Experiments Lane is in fact explicitly about internet interference. affecting, you know, your reality and stuff like that. So it's not even like exciting to talk about that stuff. Um, you know, like it's the same way with literature. What's the best novel of all time? Dostoevsky or Hugo or um, Jane Austen. Like, yeah, sure, we could talk about them, but there's nothing really to talk about as much as you'd want, you know. And I have talked about them, but it's like, you know, something about Count of Monte Cristo. People like try to talk about it in the modern lens, but then it's like, you know what's problematic? The Count's relationship with Haiti, when it's one of the best things in the book, and it's what, you know, it's love that redeems him, because Mercedes just can't love anymore. And you know, the what they had is ruined and gone. Like, yeah, sure, okay, you know, like it's you know, like I joked about not even joked, but like, you know, I brought up the Cormac McCarthy's thing. So like, in reality, is that actually the problem with his work? That, you know, he dated a 17-year-old or slept with or whatever the heck he did. I don't know. It's just an internet meme. You know, actually, no, it's not the problem with his work. There was nothing in it that has anything to do with the women he slept with. He barely has any women in his work anyway. In fact, most of the time they're dead or bitches. You know, like you know, the exception being like Llewellyn's wife and the sheriff's wife. You know, those are the only two women who have anything positive about them in his entire oeuvre that I can remember. You know, in Blood Meridian, most of the women are just murdered. You know, they're just either screwed or murdered. Like it's you know, in actuality, he, you know, I don't think that that was the problem with his work. You know, it's you know, there's people you can say that about. I made some jokes about Epstein earlier, but it's like, you know, yeah, sure, you know, part of the problem is, you know, he was murdering and raping kids, you know, and in the worst email of the entire set, telling a dude, yeah, you should when the kid that you're molesting, you know, calls out to Jesus Christ, you should dress up as Jesus, you know, and rape her. You know, like that was the context of what he was saying. It's a disgusting email. You know, he's an evil man. You know, and then it's deeper, right? You know, there's that hatred of Christ and a willingness to blaspheme Christ that you know, also is in there. You know, a hatred of Christian and Christian men, and Christian families and Christian values. I think that's the deeper problem in men like Epstein and Cormac McCarthy, and all the other, you know, things in the world. You know, these critics, who I maintain would accept an invitation to the island, who would accept evil being done and done around them. You know, for you know, these things. The only reason they're not is because they're cheaper. You know, it's like being you know, it's like what's required to put down a Christian man? You know, in reality, it's like demons working overtime, to set up a series of sets so that he's exhausted on a work trip, you know, 1,000 miles from home. You know, and has to do this and they have to do that, and the girl has to spend, you know, this much time to seduce him, you know, and in reality, you know, he has to go through all these hoops and choose it himself, you know, from a position of weakness, where in reality he would never choose it if he was strong, versus I'm willing to sell my soul for $5. Yeah, sure, buddy. You know, I write bad reviews online. You know, when will they invite me to the elite clubs? The point is, Keijo is the best anime of all time, excluding the classics.
What'd you say it was?
Keijo.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know it really.
Oh, it's the anime about like girls in swimsuits smacking butts and sumo wrestling.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best anime of all time.
Yes. I think I watched that. We had like an episode where like you watched the thing I liked and I watched the thing that you liked and I couldn't stand it. I hated it.
It's just JoJo with swimsuits, okay?
Yes. That's why I love Kuroko no Basket. Not that's with swimsuits, but I love Kuroko no Basket because it's just basketball with JoJo powers.
Yep.
One of my all-time favorite scenes is from Kuroko no Basket when they start one of the games and then Kagami, who is the real main character. Kuroko is actually like the deuteragonist. It's Kagami who's the protagonist. Anyway, Kagami's eyes flash. He passes, you know, like dribbles the ball back. He takes he takes a super shot. The crowd gasps. Can it be? No. Is he insane? Everybody's like wondering, has he entered the zone to start the game? It's like, why would you do that? And then everybody's like gasping. They're all going, no, this is unheard of. Nobody ever starts the game in the zone. It's like, is he mad? Has he lost his mind? It's great. I love it. It's so good. And then they all have superpowers, but like they don't call them that. They all like try and justify as like, no, this is a real basketball ability. It's not. None of it makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
Like one of them has the ability that he watches somebody do a move and he can just replicate it perfectly. One of Kuriko can straight up turn invisible. That's his power. Like
That's
somehow this is a basketball related hour that apparently the way they justify is like he's just so unmemorable that people don't notice he exists. And this is like his superpower. Kagami has a super jump. Let's see. There was one of my favorites is Emperor's Eye. He has the ability that one of his eyes allows him to like see the future. Or something. I don't know exactly how it works. It's weird. One of them, he doesn't really have a power so much as he's just so insanely talented that everything he does is like a trick shot and he doesn't need to put any effort into it. He just does it. One of them is his power, which is only a power in Japan, by the way, is that he's really tall and you can't score on him. That's his power.
He's 6 foot instead of 5'11".
Yes. And it's that he's like really, because they're all members of the generation of miracles, right? So you have to remember, like, the premise of Kuroko no Basket is that this super middle school team known as the generation of miracles, all of them have superpowers. Now they've hit high school and they've split up to different schools, except that there is a rumors. Don't ask how this makes any sense, by the way, because if you think about it for 2 seconds, this is obviously nonsense and could be easily verified, but there are rumors of a mysterious Phantom 6 player on the Generation of Miracles, but only rumors. And this mysterious Phantom 6 player is our boy Kuriko, who can turn invisible.
Right.
And he teams up with Kagami, who was like studying basketball abroad in the States, and just shows up and decides that he wants to make it his mission to take down the Generation of Miracles. And Kuriko teams up with him, and that's the show. It's great. I love it.
What are you doing? Listen, I've been to America and I've seen all the players. This blackface will help me win.
No, they made a movie called Last Game where they take on an American team. They're just like a foreign team that shows up to Japan and they humiliate like the Japan national team. And the Generation of Miracles like sees this and then issues a challenge to them.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good movie too. Kuroko no Basket, Last Game. But yeah, it's.
Listen,
I love Kuroko because it's unbelievably silly and over the top and ridiculous. It's basketball with JoJo powers. It's really the best way to describe it. And the best part is they don't actually admit that's JoJo powers. It's not superpowers, guys. These are real abilities.
Right.
Like they're basketball abilities. You can learn how to do this.
Well, it's like Kagami. What new knowledge have you gained from your American studies? Listen, kid, I can't remember the name of the other guy. I've learned a secret word from the inner cities of America, and if you say it,
their level of play drops dramatically, but you put your life in danger. It's only busted out if you're really desperate.
There's 2 versions. The hard R you just can't use unless you're expected to put
the
your
hard
life
R.
line.
And then that actually could be a real like a great parody episode of Kuroko. They're like losing the game. It's like, Kuroko, I don't think we have a choice. We have to drop the hard R. Kagami, no, it's too dangerous.
It's okay. I've got a secret strategy. And he starts putting on boot polish on his face. It should protect you from the worst of it. Sorry. All right. This.
Koroko just in the background go, no, Koroko, they'll kill you. And go, no, that's for the team. Hey, Nick. And then the episode just ends. And that's the cliffhanger.
It's like the ending of Yoshida no Joe, where he's like doing it, except it's like the Koroko is just like against the backdrop of the basketball being kicked to death by the American team. They won, but at what cost? Anyway, all right.
Incredible. Now I want to make like a parody of Koroko no Basket that's about them dropping the hard R to win a game. I can imagine him telling Koroko this, and Koroko, they're losing the game, and then and Kagumi's like, but what do I do? But what do I do? How do I stop him? And then Koroko goes, hey, Nig, and then you just hear Kagumi go, Koroko, no, and the episode ends. Then you have like next time on Koroko no Basket, and then like the guy just has Koroko by the neck. Like, what the fuck did you just say to me? And Kagumi's like, Koroko's giving us a chance. This is horrible. Incredible. I'm gonna write this, and then I'm gonna see how it does in the Koroko no Basket fan community. I'm sure it'll be a hit.
You're gonna get all the subreddit gold.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Kagami comes out in the second half, his face covered in paint. No, the whole team. That's like, yeah. He goes, we've joined our captain. And then Khan's like, guys, you were moved by my.
Holy cow.
Incredible.
I can't do it.
Anyway, enjoy your night, guys. This was very informative.
Remember, stay out of Camp Crystal Lake. And if you are in Camp Crystal Lake, don't sin. Because if you sin, Jason will stab you.
Does the hard R count?
No, actually.
Oh,
it's not a sin. However, you will get stabbed for different reasons.
But not by Jason.
Not by Jason. Jason, as demographically a white man, a poor white man in that part of the neighborhood, would actually approve of you saying it. But you know, the subreddits aren't ready for that conversation.
Yes.
You know, he hasn't murdered a bunch of black people merely because they just don't show up that deep in Alabama. So this is so admissible, and in our own names. In our own names, Anthony. But it's all right. It's worth it. All right, guys. Have a good night. Next week we'll do something else. I've got some emails from Raconteur Press, so I might have an author on.